Angel, the Catholic Church was hijacked by these bad cardinals. They admitted in their Facebook. One of these cardinal admitted the Synod of Synodality, considering they're using it as a weapon to change the church. So the church, the Catholic Church, is no longer Catholic. Okay, we're gonna watch this, okay? We're gonna watch this. Okay, watch it, okay, watch it!
So, on the Cardinal's Facebook, Cardinal Gresh, who is one of the co-chairs of the Synod on Synodality, he released his answers to an interview or a series of questions he received about the Synod. And his answers are eye-opening, to say the least. I'm just going to focus on one of them. Here today, he was asked, he basically let us know that what we need to do is rethink Catholicism. The synodality, as a process, is forcing us to rethink everything about the Catholic faith. Everything. Again, folks, people don't like it when we say it's a new religion. We get accused of leading people astray and saying all sorts of evil things, but it's a new religion. And it's not just the Synod, it's Vatican II. He admits it himself here. So he published a lot of this stuff. Again, he published this all on Facebook, on his own public Facebook here. As you can see, I'll just highlight this so I can not lose my place. This is Cardinal Mario Gresh, published this 2 days ago. And the first question he's asked is, it's up here at the top, and it takes a long time to actually get to an answer. So that's why I'm going to just go back down there, make this a little bigger for those of you who wish to follow along at home. Again, Cardinal Mario Gresh. By the way, co-chairing the Synod on Synodality does make you, at least on paper, more likely to become the next pope. More likely. That doesn't mean he's a guarantee, and I say Mario Gresh is the next pope, but he's definitely, his popability has gotten a boost from this, because it means that he can handle things like running an ecumenical council, for example. He and Cardinal Hollerich, the other person that I think is a sleeper candidate. But here's the basically, it's less of a question, more of a statement that he got from a theology professor. And the question he received is, the synodal process is a learning path for the Roman Catholic Church to incorporate the insights of all its members as it seeks and experiments with ways forward into an as yet unknown future. However, official church regulations on doctrine, law, and practice leave little room for maneuver in many respects. Moreover, in Catholic mentalities, innovation can only often prevail if it can be presented as continuity. From a theological perspective, we would like to suggest that together with synodality, it is also necessary to learn how to deal with the development of doctrine and practice in a historically informed and critically self-reflective way. So that's a question he got. It's not really a question, it's a statement. He's going to answer this. So let's go to do this in plain English. The synodal process essentially has allowed the church to bring in all the ideas and insights of the members as it just decides to change and play around with new ways of being church, as the more plain language synod leaders have used in the recent past. And we don't know where this is taking us. However, often the church's deposit of the faith, regulations on doctrine, canon law, and its practice of the faith leave little room to experiment with how to change, how to be church in the future. Moreover, in the Catholic way of thinking, these new things can often only be doable if they are identifiably Catholic, and we can see where they came from in the history of the faith. So from a theological perspective, we would suggest, together with synodality, that we need to really address this continuity idea and this practice and how we practice the faith today and reassess them. That's essentially what this theology professor is saying. He was apparently very sold on synodality because they really like the idea of an inclusive church. Here is what Cardinal Margaret has to say on this. It's a long answer, so I'm not going over the whole painful thing. Maybe some more tomorrow, although I'm hoping today we get something from Vigano or Cardinal Burke or something that we can have a a Good Friday live stream that's actually like focused on the faith more and on Good Friday than on news, but we'll see what the day brings us. Cardinal Gresh's answer here is revealing. He says it's time to rethink Catholicism. I'm glad they're letting us know that this is what they're doing. But you'll see why they're getting away with saying this because of just how it's worded. So here's what he says, quote, "First of all, thank you for this suggestion. I too am convinced that without an adequate theological foundation, synodality would soon end up emptying itself without affecting the life of the church. I am thinking of those sociological interpretations of synodality, which set the people of God against the pastors, fueling the oppositions and divisions that weaken the ecclesial body. This leads me to say that there is a need not only for doctrine, but for good doctrine. Even ideological readings claim the character of theological interpretation." That means whenever you see them use the word ideological claims, like ideological, that's a nice way of saying people who are against what we're doing, right? So people who are against what we're doing claim the character of theological interpretation. Perish the thought that we might say, hey, the church never did this before, what are you doing? But let's keep going. It seems to me that a developing theology of synodality is capable of grasping the complexity of the theme and its practice. I am convinced that the synodal process we are currently experiencing constitutes the mature form of the reception of Vatican II, showing how it is possible to translate into practice the ecclesiological horizon proposed by the Second Vatican Council, welding together synodality, collegiality, and primacy in dynamic unity. To do this, we must continue to theologically deepen synodality, study all its aspects, see its implications, reestablish all the connections that a suspension of synodal praxis has obscured and weakened. The first session of the Assembly delivered this need for in-depth study to the whole Church, at the very moment in which, for each theme of the synthesis report, it did not only indicate the consensus of the Assembly, but the aspects to be studied in depth and the proposals to be implemented. The bishops' conferences were invited to involve the theology study centers in their region to deepen the themes of synodality. The Secretariat of the Synod is activating with the dicasteries of the Roman Curia 10 study commissions on the topic that will not be dealt with at the October Assembly, and 5 commissions of experts to delve into theological topics in preparation for the second session of the Synod. And here he's talking about how they've got some working groups that are going to continue after this fall, so the Synod doesn't end in 2024 like we all really hoped it would. They extended it again. They now got working groups going on into next year, 2025. I like to emphasize that the theological dimension is inherent to synodality. From the experience we're living, it is becoming increasingly clear that the synodal process is all the more conscious and participatory the more it is supported by clear and shared doctrine. And that it is precisely doctrine that opens up the way for thinking for church official regulations on doctrine, law, and practice. In this regard, I could say that we have asked the Holy Father to set up a group of canonists to make proposals on how to rethink church discipline in a synodal way. Here's your first really alarming sign, to rethink church discipline in a synodal way. This is you're touching now clerical celibacy, deaconettes, who can receive the Eucharist under what conditions, church discipline. It is clear that once it is understood that the church is constitutively synodal, everything must be rethought in this perspective. Everything must be rethought in this perspective. Everything. That's a rather large umbrella. Doctrine, dogma, everything about the church. This is why the need for a fruitful dialogue between theology, especially ecclesiology being the theology of what the church is, and the law is increasingly emerging. I therefore agree with the suggestions to, quote, learn to approach the development of doctrine and practice in a historically informed and critically self-reflective manner, has an element supporting synodal praxis. But it seems to me that this requirement is internal to the synod process itself, especially if incorporating the insights of all its members as the Church seeks and experiments with ways forward into an as yet unknown future. It means listening to the Spirit who guides the Church. Which Spirit is that's guiding the synod, Cardinal? I'd really like to know. At stake in the synodal process is the sensus fidei of God's holy people who participate in the prophetic function of Christ and are an infallible incredendo. This is why I would go beyond the question of continuity, end quote. Going beyond the question of continuity means he's not that concerned if it aligns up with what was identifiably Catholic before. The question of continuity. Let's go beyond that. The purpose of the Synod of Synodality has been the process to bring the laity in, so the laity are used to participating in church functions that have nothing to do with what authority laity have, which is extremely limited anyway, and to bring them into discussions about things that are well beyond our purview. Hardcore matters of doctrine and, yes, dogma. They have said they want to bring laity into decision-making processes of this moving forward. We've seen some of this already with Francis appointing laymen to head up dicasteries. We see this in dioceses where there are now laity managing parishes in the absence of priests. This is synodality. This is democratization of the church. From there, you can get your deaconettes, you can get your priestesses, you can get your James Martin blessings all you want from there, because it's going to be the laity, the worst catechized generations in history, making these decisions moving forward. It'll be their, quote, sensus fidei, determining the truth of the faith. But beyond all that, there's actually there's actually a bit of error, condemned error anyway, in what he has to say. I've brought you this article before. It's been a while. This comes from the Unum Sanctum Catholicum blog. And the article is, what is archaeologism? If you're not familiar with archaeologism, it's this claim of, well, the ancient church, the early church did this, so we should go back to doing it. There is a right ordered development of practice and development of doctrine. And archaeologism flips that on its head and says, the things that developed over time were not good, and we should go back to the way the church did them in the early days, disregarding the fact that it was with the church's authority that things changed slowly over time, as opposed to sudden changes when you get a bunch of suspected heretics at a weird, unique council that's not ecumenical but pastoral, whatever that means, deciding that they're going to take a council over and implement things that were overtly condemned by the church. Let's not get confused here. But what you're seeing on display, there's this concept of critical theology and archaeologism. So critical theology, if you see the word critical in front of any area of social science or classical liberal arts kinds of studies, the word critical in front of it means go in and, be critical of everything you've seen before. So like literature, example, critical literature would be to say, well, these are all these books are written by a bunch of old white guys who are all gone now, so let's not bother reading it, because all they were doing was fill in the blank problems that you see people complain about in the culture. It's these guys' fault. That's all they were doing, right? It's all they're part of the problem. Critical theology is looking at the theology of the church and seeing where you can change it for the better. That's what critical theology really functionally means. Yeah, it's been condemned. Condemned by the church. Critical studies in general were condemned by the church. But you also see archaeologism. And so this Unum Sanctum article gives us a good sign. I'm not going to go over the whole thing, obviously, because we've got Bishop Schneider's piece to get to. But archaeologism. It says in his 1947 encyclical Mediator Dei, Venerable Pius XII warned against what he termed an exaggerated and senseless antiquarianism in the form of the sacred liturgy. This preference for antiquarianism has subsequently been known as archaeologism, and from the 1930s till today has been one of the most prevalent schools of thought and discussions about Catholic identity. What is archaeologism? Why is it so prevalent? And why did Pope Pius XII warn Catholics against
Angel, the first part is not really good. Okay? These are selective cardinals, bishops, priests, who are part of the Synod of Synodality. They're hijacking the church. Okay? A lot of bad things are going on now in the church. What do you want to do? Huh? Do you have any suggestion, Angel? You're just listening. Come on. So, it's really bad. Okay? But we still go to church. But then, on a good church, okay? So these are bad people. They're forcing us in our throat. Their own ideas, bad ideas. Hey, okay? They want to change the Roman Rite, the Roman canon. They want to change it. Okay? Okay, so why don't you talk to the Mr. Pope? Okay, talk to Mr. Pope. Okay? Talk to him. Okay? Why he's doing it? Well, anyway, let's stop watching this, okay? It's a waste of time, okay? It's a waste of time. Okay, let's just pray the Rosary and Divine Mercy. Okay, I know you're waiting for me. Okay, let's watch it again.